my name is John Sveck. Welcome to this ALL24 video. I'm here today with guest coach Matt Nesbitt. He's the offensive line coach and recruiting coordinator at Queen's University. Thanks for being with us, Coach.
Thanks, John. I appreciate you inviting me today. I'm pretty excited to talk about some offensive line play.
Awesome. So I'm going to kind of give you the floor here, Coach. My understanding is you're going to talk us through maybe some movement stuff and some drill progression. So I'll just go ahead and give you the floor.
Perfect. Thank you. So, yeah, today I'll be going over an offensive line drill progression that focuses on protection. And on this slide here, you can see these are the drills that I'll be going over today. The goal when selecting these drills for this presentation was, the first piece was selecting drills that you could go and do during COVID, so there's no equipment, you can reinforce it yourself. If you're a coach prescribing the drills to your athletes, you can do it virtually, or they can just send you a video as well. Then the second piece was to make sure that it was progressionary based. So any level offensive lineman watching this today can take one of the elements from these drills. So just dive into the next slide here.
For sure.
The first thing is like what we're looking to develop. So here at Queens, when we refer to protection and we refer to lower body movement, there's two principles that we educate our athletes on. The first one is knee relationship, and the second one's hip relationship. So knee relationship refers to the kick knee. So in this diagram here, this is a right guard. So we'd be referring to his kick being his right leg. The knee relationship is really an alignment. So we want to be able to see that kick knee inside of the heel and that hip inside of the knee. So when we talk to our athletes and we say knee relationship, that's what that means, that exact alignment. The reason that we want that is because it's a position of redirection. And it's something you see constantly through the game of football, really any movement-based sport. And now the example I give athletes is if I'm doing a suicide and I go into my right, planting off my right foot to go back to the left, I need to see that chain where my knee goes inside of my heel and my hip goes inside of my knee. I apply force on the ground to go the opposite direction. So for us at the offensive line position, trying to be as most efficient as possible, we just want to maintain that knee relationship. So anytime a defender tells us now to redirect, we can do that right away. So that's the reason we do it. The physical cue that we give our athletes here at Queens is to drive that knee inside. And we find that to be the most efficient cue because, yes, it gets us to knee relationship to redirect, but it also allows us to stay square. And that's something that you hear a lot of offensive line coaches talking about, where in their pass set phase, you want to stay square. And the most efficient cue that we have is driving that knee in, because we find when you drive that knee in, it limits the external rotation of that kick hip. So we get the most bang a buck there, where, you get kind of cueing two things in one. So we just talk about driving that knee in. And then the second principle we talk about is for that post leg. And this one, I don't think it's coached as much. I see it a lot with younger athletes where it has to be developed. So I always hit on it as soon as an athlete comes to Queens. And we talk about hip relationship. And what we want to see there in the diagram is our knee and heel just outside the hip. So the really two other things that you'll see a lot of, and we'll even be able to show some of it in the video today, is that heel gets too far outside their frame, and now that leg gets too elongated. So now you have no knee bend and you can't really redirect laterally anymore. The other one is when you see the heel, knee, and hip all stacked. So now when they're all stacked, it's very difficult to sink into that hip. So what hip relationship allows us to do, and why we do it, is to sink into the hip to diffuse a bull rush right away, but it also allows us to redirect. So the way I explain that one is to athletes, if you had to do a forward lunge, would you rather do a forward lunge where your foot was right ahead of your hip, or maybe off to a 45-degree angle? And you're more sturdy, more powerful off on that 45-degree angle, because you get to sink into that hip and activate more glute than you would just quad. So you're actually more powerful. So the cue that we look for in reinforcing hip relationship now is always tucking that heel. So talking about tucking the heel underneath that knee, so we can always maintain that alignment that we want. So those are the two things that we'll always be reinforcing throughout these drills here today. And then the first drill here. So this is knee drives. This is something that, you know, our guys do in early outs throughout, just on their own. You can see they kind of do it even kind of during this COVID phase here. And so knee drives are just reinforcing hip relationship. So it's not talking about a knee relationship at all. It's just really working on that post leg. So they're going to have their kick knee in the ground. They're going to really load on that post heel. And then in the drill, all they're going to do is drive off that post heel and now practice tucking that heel underneath the knee with urgency. So the goal is to really, when you get the film or you're evaluating this of your athletes, is to see as soon as their kick is in the ground, do they have hip relationship? So if you just want to roll it here. So here you can see when his kick is in the ground, this is him having hip relationship, where you see that heel is tucked right underneath that knee, and those are just both outside of that hip. So really what you're trying to cue, like I said, is tucking that heel. What you'll see when they start doing the drill, or maybe just younger athletes that aren't as developed, is they won't have that same urgency to tuck the heel. So John, if you just want to go to where that kick leg is halfway up in the air.
Yep.
Right, perfect. So you'll see that relationship. So not even worrying about, you know, his kick leg at all, just looking at his post leg right now. If the athlete doesn't have urgency to tuck that heel right away, that's where you see it's too far out of his frame, and they'll have that elongated post leg. And now they're not really in a position to redirect anymore. So the big thing here is, you know, stopping the video as soon as that kick is in the ground, and then reinforcing, did they have the urgency to tuck the heel and get to that hip relationship that we look for. So that's knee drives. That's what we look for there. And then we just kind of layer on top. So
okay.
The next slide here will be angle redirect. So this is the second drill kind of in this progression, where this is one where we just prescribe the angle to our athletes, where these are two interior guys. So we're prescribing a 25-degree angle. They can use whatever indicators you want. So this is, you know, during the pandemic. So some guys are using rugby balls, you know, some are using sandals and shoes. So really you can use whatever. The goal, so we'll start the drill in our stance, and now they're just going to be taking kicks on that prescribed angle. And the goal is, as soon as there's ground contact, we want to be able to see the two principles that we've talked about again. We want to see hip and knee relationship. So we're always in a position of redirection. And these guys go through it pretty quickly because they've done these drills a million times in early outs. But for someone that's doing the drill for the first time, the way that we'll kind of tell them to go through it will be, take just a single, and all of a sudden you do one kick and pause, and then look down and say, do I have knee relationship? Do I have hip relationship? If I do, I'm going to take another rep and layer it on. If I don't, I'm just going to reset and do it again. You know, and the big thing is we got to kind of master the crawl before we get to a walk. You know, there's really no point of escalating until we're seeing those two principles and we're getting the most out of this drill. So singles would be a situation where we're just really working that one drive, where we're going once, we're stopping, we're reinforcing it. Yes, we have it, we go again. And that would be similar to, we're just setting, you know, a tighter shade, and we're only going to be working a single. And then you'll see them posting flat. And like I said, at any point, we can really just pause the film and look for those two principles.
Sure. Why don't we try to start with this one here, Coach, and I'll try to slow-mo it.
So he does a good job here. You can see right here, we have those two principles, and this is where, you know, he's doing a good job of tucking that heel and driving that knee in. So the same cues that we talked about before, you'll see sometimes that kick knee will start working outside, you know, especially if they're getting the coaching cue of kicking, they'll actually think about driving that foot backwards, and you'll see that knee flail out, which just doesn't put us in an efficient position. So that's where you get to that physical cue of driving that knee in and staying square throughout.
And I see he's added in a medicine ball now.
Yeah, so for these, like, we'll get to a point where we get to med ball work. For us, like, this is him, he kind of just added in to kind of reinforce tight hands. We'll get to med ball work where we actually have our hands a little bit behind the med ball and we want to squeeze it. And we want to have our hands at 3/4 length to activate upper body. So we talk about activating lats, activating core a little bit so that we can practice as if I'm blocking the defender, then still having to redirect to cover them up. So yeah, this one's just doubles now. So as if once we feel good that we've kind of mastered the singles and we're working those two principles, now we'll just get to 2 kicks, 2 posts, 2 kicks, 2 posts, and really just be working in now those two principles and reinforcing them.
Outstanding. We'll go to the next slide here.
So now, once we feel good with those two principles and we've defined the angle we want to kick on and post on, and we're kind of mastering that, we'll take away those indicators. And now we'll just work on trying to work the channel of seeing it, recognizing it, and then telling my lower body what to do. So now we get to visual reaction drills where on the left, it's the exact same principles we're reinforcing. It's the same as what you just saw from angle redirect of the prescribed angles we'll be working at. But now we're just giving actual visual cues to the offensive lineman of when to kick, when to post, when to kick, when to post. The goal, or what you should be really thinking about when running the drill, is just to kind of always keep them off schedule. You know, where you don't want them anticipating when they're kicking, when they're posting. You want them reacting just the same way they would be with, you know, a defender crossing their face, or a defender, you know, they set them, they come back outside and we have to cover them up. So we're just simply cueing them, you know, when to kick, when to post right now. And we just want to maintain those two principles.
And you mentioned this is something that players can do during COVID. I mean, so that could be your, you know, younger brother, younger sister, just basically pointing in a direction. Is that accurate?
100%. So these are a lot of the drills that, so no matter what year our guys are in, when we get to like development mode, so as soon as the season's done, our guys will do some of these on their own. And we'll just prescribe it to them because we think, you know, it's good to refresh, go back to the fundamentals, the very, very core basics, and then they progress all the way through. And the nice thing, yeah, like in this kind of pandemic right now, we've been able to do a lot of coaching because the guys understand the two principles and they can do a lot of these drills on their own.
That's great. We'll just watch these through here. And so someone's off camera, just giving the directions.
Yep. So you can see we do a good job of just maintaining the hip and knee relationship throughout that whole phase. Ideally, that's where, so there we actually have that slam ball, and that's where we want to be holding a little bit more behind with a little bit more extension in my hands, or my elbows, sorry, so that now we're actually having to grip that ball and squeeze it and activate lats and core rather than like scooping it underneath.
Right.
So that's just a whole kind of another level there. But really the main thing of that visual redirect is the lower body.
And we'll watch this one here.
Yeah, so this drill is now stairs, and this is a tackle specific drill. Where this is the most difficult one out of all of them. This would be now not working the set phase anymore, but working the actual read off of the defender. So we're working two transitions in this drill. We're working as if the defender gave us a hoop move. So that'd be like an edge rush. So if we get an edge rush, we want to be kicking straight vertically back, staying square. If he now works back inside, we have to respect it by posting flat. So he's working that transition of vertical back inside as if we got a hoop to inside move. And then to get the most out of the drill, we're also transitioning from an inside post back vertical. So that would be now if a defender gave you that jab move to try to sit down a tackle and then get back to the hoop. You know, so those are, you know, really, that's kind of what you see a lot of is if you're trying to take the inside, we're going to kind of show you the outside and come back underneath. You know, if we're trying to get the hoop on you, we're going to try to sit you down, freeze your feet, and then get back to the hoop. So for us, we try to recognize that and work this simple drill where we're just trying to master those transitions, the two of them, and get a lot of repetitions in it. The reason it's called stairs is literally it's just a stair pattern that we create. And it's literally just someone cueing them to go vertically back, post inside, vertically back, post inside. And it's the same situation where we want to keep them off schedule where, you know, it might be 2 kicks vertical, 1 post, 3 kicks vertical, 2 posts, you know, and they can't really anticipate what's going on. They're always reacting the same way they would to a defender.
Now, after listening to you, Coach, I'm going to assume that going through a drill like this with more variables, you're still looking for those same things we've been talking about the entire time as far as those angles.
Yeah, 100%. That's why it's so important that, you know, you look at that progression base. You know, where if we were to throw a first-year athlete into the stairs drill, the reality is we would never, ever get to a point where we're able to see hip and knee relationship. You know, where we can start it from, you know, knee drives and really develop hip relationship from that, go to angle redirect where they're only working singles. It allows us to really just focus on those two coaching points, develop those motor patterns successfully, and then layer on the progression of the drills.
That's outstanding, Coach. That's a phenomenal breakdown, and I think a lot of people are going to get a lot out of that. So, unless you have any final thoughts to add on this drill.
No, that's great, man. I appreciate it.
Awesome. It's been great having you on, and again, I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Coach.